Hello, it's Alina Gigi, and today I have a very special guest for you. I have Jessica McElveen. She is a child behavior and family dynamic specialist. Welcome aboard.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Somewhere around there.
Yes.
Oh, great. And so I was just feeling into one of the most powerful messages that I received from you in another podcast when I was doing some research and just getting up to speed after we met each other years ago and you were already working away at this and getting results. But before we go back in the timeline, we're going to start with like right now. And the best way that a parent can have a great relationship with their child and create a happy home is to understand themselves and know themselves and have a relationship with themselves. Is that correct?
It's certainly correct. Yes, that's a good nutshell to have it in. And there's a few layers to that as well. So whenever you're ready to go into it,
Let's unpack them right now.
cool. So I guess the journey that I end up taking my clients through is it's a bit of a self-discovery journey in the beginning, with the intention to understanding their children a whole lot more too. And often I find that when parents come to me, they've gone years, months, years, with the intention of simply understanding their children. That's the focus. And that's been prescribed to them as the best method in creating a happy home and getting their child's behaviors under wraps. They've been told that we need to focus on your child and understand them and diagnose them, get them tested to create these medical plans, these appointments. And what I find is that after a while of doing that, parents end up feeling like failures anyway, and still very, very, very disappointed and upset and lack confidence, really. And so that's why we start with a self-discovery process in a lot of my work, because we have fat chance of understanding our kids if we don't understand ourselves first. And the layers within that. So within my work, I do a lot of stuff around the nervous system. So really understanding our own nervous system first, so then we can understand our children's nervous systems. So a lot of our behavior, most of our behaviors, a lot of our reactions, our behaviors, what we're trying to avoid and what we're trying to aim for, in terms of sensations and emotions and experiences, is felt in the nervous system. And it's something that is not spoken about in the doctor's office, and it's not spoken about within a lot of medical textbooks, and simply because they don't learn about it, they don't focus on it either. But that's the missing piece. If we can understand that, then we understand how both of our nervous systems are communicating with each other constantly and triggering each other as well. So we do need to go down that path. Our nervous system is us. It's a creation within us. It's been with us since the day we were born, beforehand, usually, right, in utero. And it's been learning since that time. And that is who we've become. We've become this body with a nervous system and an unconscious mind. And so that then we go into that layer too. A lot of the unconscious patterning and the habits and the belief systems that are there, we really need to get it. We need to understand why we believe that behavior is bad, why we believe that behavior is wrong, or that dynamic is wrong, or why that one's right. We have a lot of these judgments around child behaviors, and I will not see, I can't fathom, and I have not seen how those judgments actually help parents and help children. So essentially, that's what I'm here to break apart and pull apart, is normalizing a lot of that stuff before we get to the stage where we need to pathologize everything and label it, because there's not much need for that, to be honest. When we get down and dig and really understand that child's nervous system and our own, there's not much need for a label, because there's always a reason. And that's what digging into ourselves starts to uncover, because we've got a lot of conditioning within the parenting role and within the family dynamic that's informing how we see our children.
Could you give me an example of that?
Absolutely. So oftentimes, what's one? I've just finished a group program now with just an amazing group of parents. And oftentimes it's something that we either felt we missed out on when we were young, we didn't get from our parents, right? A lot of the generation at the moment that are parents and their parents, I'm hearing a lot of the time, well, I only remember being told that I need to be quiet and keep, my emotions are ridiculous. Don't be stupid, toughen up, or there's no need to worry about that, no need to cry about that. So a lot of that comes through. And I think what ends up happening is we see all of these big emotions from children and we start to freak out. So parents they have that unconscious conditioning there that emotions are wrong. It's usually not showing up consciously. It's unconscious. It's sitting there. And so our instant reaction is to try and shut it down, to try and prevent it, to work out how to stop it. And not only do we have that unconscious thought or belief system running the show, but we've also got the environment around us in a lot of the systems that we have in our world, the medical system, the school system, many systems, actually encouraging that way of doing things too. They say children should self-regulate well. They say, angry is bad. And that if a child, which I heard from a client last week, a child was mean to a little girl, and instantly we've got, well, maybe you should get him tested. So we've got the people around us too feeding that unconscious belief as well. So that's how it can show up in reality. And then it's a domino effect from there. So if we are just working to prevent the emotions because it's uncomfortable for us and we've been told that it was wrong, then we're squishing emotions. Children don't have the opportunity to learn how to process their own. And I often say to my clients that childhood really is the training ground. It's the training ground. Everything that we learn when we're a child is how we're going to deal with emotions as an adult. That's how I function now. And that's where my journey has been, to unlearn a lot of things. So if we don't respect that childhood is the training ground for all of this, then are we really setting kids up for success? No, we're not. We're limiting their learning opportunities, which is going to do far more harm than good long term.
Wow, there's so much there. Yeah, I mean, anything with the energy of suppression will only take stronger roots and then come out even stronger later on, right?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. It does.
So denying an emotion is not going to solve it, obviously. So then from there we can feel and trust that when we connect with it and feel with it, it can actually sometimes even release anyway, because it's been seen and felt and heard. And then what's after that?
Yeah, and that's where we start, Alina. So a lot of the time children just need it to be seen, okay? And often when we've got escalating emotions and meltdowns from children, they're escalating without, it's not necessary a lot of the time. Now, one thing I do say all the time is that meltdowns are required for future success. They are required. We are not meant to stop them. We will never stop them. So I'm working to try and stop them will have parents feel like failures and set children up to feel like failures too. But we do have a lot of unnecessary escalations. And that's because we're judging the emotion as wrong, stupid, unnecessary, or it's triggering us. So we need to start with just seeing it. And how I like to describe it to my clients is, their nervous system in that moment is just wanting to be seen and heard. And if a nervous system feels judged or suppressed, it will actually scream louder. So the nervous system will scream louder and louder until it feels like it's been heard and seen. And it's not until the nervous system feels safe, until it feels seen, that it will start to calm. So we're working against the natural reactions of our nervous system and your kid's nervous system if we don't just allow it to be. So that's one thing that happens. The nervous system will scream louder. It will escalate louder to be taken seriously. And that's the message the child is getting. The message is being sent to the brain, be louder, be more fierce, throw things, scream louder, yell more, hit. That's the message that's going to be sent because this nervous system doesn't feel seen yet. So I often find that, the quickest way to start removing all of these unnecessary escalations, I say it's about parenting the nervous system. And that means it's so simple. And it's really about speaking to and communicating with the part of the brain that's active in that moment, which is the emotion center. It's all about emotions. And there's no logic there. We can forget logic. But we bring it in, we bring in the persuasive language, and we bring in the language, tenfold. We're trying to talk them out of it, have them see a different perspective. So this word persuasion is a big one that I'm usually speaking parents through that process. Let's eliminate all persuasive language afterward, because that allows the nervous system to be seen. I don't know about you, but if I'm upset and I'm emotional and I speak to my husband and his reaction is, oh, it's not really that big of a deal, or don't worry about it, you worry too much, that doesn't make me feel better. That makes me feel worse. And that makes me, again, my nervous system is telling me scream louder. Then I will exaggerate things. I will, I'm not a yeller, but I will either cry more, I will get more frustrated, or I'll isolate myself more because I just haven't felt understood. So, anybody trying to use persuasive language in those particular moments with children, that's where we see the escalations continue as well. We've got to remove the persuasive language and just allow it to be there completely. In that moment is not a teachable moment. So we hear it, we see it, we remove language, remove persuasive language, and kind of get a little curious. We're so stuck in judgment a lot of the time. We've got our judgmental lenses on constantly, and getting curious is a word that I repeat so many times in my programs, because that's the mindset that leads to understanding and reconnection with kids. If we're curious, then they may just feel safe enough to have that chat with you, or to show you a different emotion, or to let the emotion go quicker. So getting curious is a really important piece of the process too, in parenting the nervous system. Again, judgment will have your nervous system and your child's nervous system scream louder. And you're right, dig their heels in with it, to prove a point. So that's where we want to get to. If we can combine those, usually that solves a lot of problems. And when that doesn't, or when we find that hard, it's usually then we've got to go back to base camp, which is parent. Why is it so hard? Why do we need to justify? Why do we need to persuade all the time? Why do we need to change things? Why do we feel triggered with those emotions? And we just got to explore and get curious about ourselves too. So that's generally the process that happens when we start considering what it's like to parent the nervous system instead of the behaviors, because the behaviors they're just there as a result of the nervous system.
Wow. So the behaviors are a result of the nervous system. And so if we're triggered, then really, I guess we need to heal and clear those triggers ourselves as well first, before we can really actively parent. Because when we're in that triggered state, we're in that flight or fright, and we're in that survival mode, and we can't process rationally either. So do you have any tips for helping to clear triggers quickly?
So I think the word quickly can be really dangerous in the scenarios of rewiring our nervous system as adults, because it does lead to a whole lot of disappointment and failure and feelings of that. I know parents that have come to me after the years of doing research and seeing practitioners, professionals, everything, who promise that well, you're going to be perfect if you just do this for the next 20 days or 90 days. Rewiring the nervous system, our own nervous system, takes time and true commitment. And that is a process that I do go through with my clients. So I go through a process called Rewire, and it's about rewiring our own nervous system. And in those moments, we start off small. So we don't need to start off in the moments where you see red or you black out and there is so much anger and frustration there. We don't need to start off with those big moments, but it could be in the little moments where the TV is too loud and you start to feel that irritability in your body, or your husband, wife, partner, friend has said something to you and you can feel the little bubble of discomfort coming up, or you're about to be late for an appointment. Okay. And you can feel that anxiousness start coming up in the body. They're all sensations of the nervous system. They're all sensations of the body. So it's with those little moments that we can practice rewiring the nervous system. And I teach a 3-part system in doing that. But essentially what it is, we have an opportunity in those moments to notice what the sensation is, because we rarely stop and consider it. And it's always those sensations that are building up through the day and lead to our volcano eruptions with our kids or with our partners, whoever it is. And it's because we're resisting it all of the time. We actually have this really poor relationship with that sensation. We've decided at some point in our past, usually in childhood, that it's a really scary, disgusting, wrong sensation. So it could be the fluttering in the belly. It could be the beating of the heart in the chest. It could be the sweaty palms. It could be the headache that starts to come on, or the tension that you start to feel in your shoulders. This is there every second of every day, and it depends on how aware we are of it. That dictates how fast we are to react to a scenario. So with those little moments, there are opportunities to stand still, stay still, and really feel into the sensation, not the thoughts that are going around in the head, because we're going to get lost in those, the thoughts of judgment. So we've got to come back to the body, because the body is what's instructing our reactions. So what's the sensation? And how non-judgmental can we be with it? So can you befriend it? Can you breathe through it? Can you work with it? Can you build a relationship with it that is one of acceptance rather than fight and forcing it away? It's until we can practice that regularly and become so aware of what sensations are triggering our reactions, then they'll forever be in the driver's seat. So if anybody wants the rewire process, I did a run through with some clients last week. I'm happy to share the recordings and the steps. But the rewiring is about altering our relationship to the sensations that pop up in our bodies. If we continue just focusing on the thoughts, we're missing a major piece of our reaction puzzle and pie.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you. That is so useful for adults, in general, going through life. I mean, this deep work, it makes sense. We feel things in our body that's okay. Yes, there's thoughts, but there's feelings, and that's where we experience the feelings, is in our body. So
yeah. And then we've got some more compassion for kids then when we actually do that for ourselves. I hear so often that parents will say, well, children should be able to do this. And then I ask them, well, how do you go? How do you go with your own tantrums and meltdowns? And rarely have they got theirs under control, So it's, if we can understand ourselves more and understand that it does take a lot of commitment as an adult to rewire this and adjust this, then we've got some more understanding and compassion of what's going on in a child's brain and body, because they've got even limited access to what we have. I've I've been practicing this for so many years now, and I take it so seriously in my days of where there's opportunities to practice it. And sometimes I get it right and sometimes I don't. But, I've spent, 10 days. I do this yearly. I do 10 days of 10 hours a day of silent meditation. So that's 100 hours in 10 days, or just over 100 hours we do. And there is, I've got to say, there's no scarier place than to be inside yourself for that long. So I've, it's really given me a great insight into how much our nervous system just dictates every relationship that we have. And this includes our children.
Wow. Very powerful. Thank you so much for that. And I'll definitely share the rewiring steps. I think that's very valuable for everybody listening. Any other takeaways before you head off?
I think I think what I would like to say is just that maybe the journey of what parents go through when I do see them, because often parents feel a bit alone in it, alone in just trying to figure out what their children need, and blaming themselves a lot for everything. And nothing of what I teach or share is ever about blame or judgment. There's never anything that's right or wrong. It's just that we don't have this great grasp on human phenomena and human nature and what's completely normal within that. And so then there's a lot of judgment, and there's a lot of people that make a lot of money out of self-judgment. And we also need to be aware of that too. But parents will come to me and they do feel so lost, and they do feel like such big failures and so fearful. The fear that consumes them of what their child's future looks like is absolutely horrendous for them. And I guess I've never seen freedom come from that by only focusing on the child. I've never seen freedom. I've seen freedom and inner peace come from looking within ourselves to figure out what's going on within me that I see that as wrong, or that I can't meet that child's need in that moment. That is the only time in the last 11 plus years that I've seen freedom and inner peace be created within a family, and there to truly be a happy home. So, and if we're looking for confidence as a parent, if we're looking for, that feeling I'm empowered, I know what my child needs. Again, I've never seen it come from only focusing on the child. I just never have. With my program today that I've finished up with, all of their reflections and where they've gotten to after these 12 weeks, which they did not expect at all, was I just feel a lot more confident now, because I've gone through the journey of just understanding myself and figuring out myself. So when we have more confidence within ourselves and trust ourselves more, then we have access to the solutions for our kids. We really do. That's when the solutions come. So it's a scary process, and I just hope that if any parent is listening, that you've got the right guidance around you that's going to lead to you feeling empowered and like the one that has all the answers for your child, because you do. That parents have all of the answers for their kids. It's just the mess outside that has them think otherwise. So that's my hope for every parent I work with.
Yeah. So the hope is that they listen to their intuition, really, and they get informed about what's actually going to make a difference, and then trusting their inner guidance system around that and giving it a shot.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, how can people best find you and work with you?
Sure. So definitely have a look on Instagram under jessica.mcelveen, and Facebook. So it's the same. And then you can go to jessicamcelveen.com as well on my website there. There's access to some free resources on there. And then you'll be able to, there's a YouTube channel that flows through there too. There's lots of videos that you can watch. So you can reach out to me on either of those channels, and they're the best ways.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. That was very, very amazing, and I can't wait to listen to it back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alina. Thank you.
My pleasure.